busy Friday night for our area high school football teams. Opening night for everyone but Bulloch Academy. All losses, unfortunately, but plenty of reasons to be optimistic. The Statesboro softball team hosts the Battle in the Borough. Things rained out there on Friday, but a few games were played on Saturday. We'll have some highlights for you coming up. And on the college front, it's finally game week for the Georgia Southern football team. They'll be traveling to number 13 ranked Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium to take on the Tigers. Last week, head coach Tyson Summers made the announcement that redshirt freshman quarterback Shai Werts will get the start at quarterback versus the Tigers. We'll hear from Werts, Summers, and offensive coordinator Brian Cook. And in just a minute, we will be joined by WJCL sports director Frank Sulkowski. But first, for any legal advice you may have in the Statesboro-Bulloch County area, we'd like to remind you to talk to our friend Lovett Bennett Jr., attorney at law, PC, Lovett's office located in downtown Statesboro. All right, so without further ado, let's bring him on, the big guy from WJCL television in Savannah, Frank Sulkowski. Frank, for you, I know this is week 2 for the Frenzy this past Friday, but for us here in Bulloch County, it was the first week for our area public schools to be in action. Before we get to Frank's take on week 2 for him and week 1 for us, we got to let our viewers know we are in the company of greatness. Frank Sulkowski from 2 weeks ago in his first show had a video that went viral that got picked up by everyone all around. Even ESPN. Frank, did you think your first foray into ESPN would be some dude from Glenn Academy doing the worm?
No, I never thought that a little offensive lineman from Glenn Academy in a Benedictine game against the Red Terrors would be my avenue to ESPN. So, yeah, it was the #1 not top 10 play, and if you didn't see it, basically it was early in the season opener for both teams. And Glenn Academy, now some people say they're trying to draw folks off sides. Some of the Glenn Academy kids have told me, no, they were just trying to get a delay of game. All I know is 4th and 13, and here you have an offensive lineman come trotting out there and start doing the worm. So it was something I've never seen before in football. Still really hard to imagine what I witnessed down there in Brunswick on week 1 of the season. But needless to say, that kind of kicked things off for our high school football coverage. And it was, like you said, everybody and their mother picking it up. And went a little viral. Who would have thought that would be my calling card there on Twitter and everything else? But needless to say, at least I can say I made it to ESPN someday.
Well, Frank, you played offensive line. We all know that. You played in high school. You had a little cup of coffee at ETSU. Did you ever think to do the worm to try to throw the other team off? And could you do the worm today?
I wouldn't want to hurt anyone's eyes by attempting to do the worm. 2, I've never thought of doing any kind of dancing when on the football field, especially during a game. You know, maybe I've had those delusions of if I ever scored a touchdown, something I would do, but not right there in early in the contest. You know, there's still a lot to play for, and then you do that. But again, it was an unusual play, something I never thought I would have seen. Luckily, in this past week of high school football, I didn't see somebody doing the moonwalk or stopping and popping. So maybe that will be the last of the dancing for this season.
All right, well, let's dance on over to week 2 for you, week 1 for our local public school teams. Bulloch Academy was playing their 3rd game of the season. They went into that game 2-0 on the season, ended up losing to a GHSA team, Our Lady of Mercy, on the road up in the Atlanta area. That was a tough one for them. Portal plays Trutland, a lot closer than a lot of people would have thought. They look to be a little bit on the rise. And then Statesboro High and Southeast Bulloch, both at times were within a touchdown. They're in the 3rd quarter of Richmond Hill, who's a 6A team for Southeast Bulloch with quite a few Division I prospects on it. And Statesboro High playing Burke County, who had 30 seniors coming back. I think that we all thought blowouts were possible in all these games. Instead, they hung around for a while. The final score may not be indicative of how the games were played, but when you looked at our scores locally, What was your thoughts on any of those?
Well, I tell you what, it's like you talked about Jeff Kaiser's debut there at Statesboro High School and taking on a very good Burke County team, and we've known what the Bears have been able to do in recent years. And I thought Statesboro played really well, like you said there in the second half, getting to within a touchdown before Burke was able to put the thing away. Similar thing out in Brooklyn with Southeast Bulloch taking on a Richmond Hill team that's going to be one of the teams to watch this season. A lot of Division I prospect. In fact, 3 of those guys that played against the Jackets Friday night have already verbally committed to major college football programs. Sam James, the wide receiver who really had a huge game for Richmond Hill with a couple touchdowns, including that one right there on the first play from scrimmage for Richmond Hill. He's already verbally committed to West Virginia. Justin Jeffrey, another wide receiver, is headed to Cincinnati. And then you had a chance to see the kicker there for Richmond Hill. He's already verbally committed to the University of Maryland. So some good players there. And I was impressed with how Southeast Bulloch hung in there with Richmond Hill. And I think that's going to bode well, especially when Southeast Bulloch gets to the more level competition later in the season. Statesboro, very promising start there. Again, you want to start the season with a win, but you were taking on a good opponent. Things not going to get much easier for Statesboro with the likes of Camden County coming up. But I tell you what, they looked good in their season opener at times and very promising. Portal again putting up a fight. You know, you got to watch those single A teams, especially early in the year, to see how they're playing out. And I've been really impressed by Bulloch Academy early on, 2-1 like you talked about. And again, one of the early season wins that Bulloch Academy had was against Memorial Day. Well, this past week, Memorial Day goes out and knocks off GISA AAA school Pinewood Christian 14-7 here in Savannah. So that was a very good quality win for BA to open the season. So again, I think it was a promising start for teams there in Bulloch County. And again, it's just week 1, so we have a long way to go. And hopefully those teams learned a lot in week 1 and go ahead and got the dust knocked off those shoulder pads and helmets, and we'll be good to go here as we move forward into week 2 and beyond.
All right, well, briefly, anybody in your area that really blew you away or has you a little concerned for the team because you thought they were going to be a little bit better than they are?
Well, I tell you what, one of the ones that jumps out at you is we're so used to seeing Savannah Christian dominating the competition. The Savannah Christian Raiders now 0-2 on the season. Week 1, they lost to Jefferson County. That was almost to be expected. They lost to them pretty bad last year as well. But this past Friday night, just got roughed up 34-6 by New Hampstead. And of course, Statesboro folks know a little bit about New Hampstead because the Blue Devils will see the Phoenix a little bit later on. But I thought that was a very impressive win by New Hampstead to knock off Savannah Christian here early on. Benedictine's another one of those teams that in our area just seems to be Benedictine. They opened the season by roughing up Glen Academy. They had this past week off. Now this week they'll host St. Pius out of Atlanta, so another early season test there. One of the teams, or a couple of the teams I'm really impressed with so far, Screven County looks very strong. We saw them at the Irk Russell Classic, knock off Bluffton out of South Carolina. And then you also go over to Lyons, Toombs County, undefeated to start the season. They too picked up a win at the Irk Russell Classic, and they followed that up with a win over at Twiggs County this past Friday. So those are just a couple of the teams here early in the season that and some of the storylines that we've seen here in the first couple weeks of the high school football season.
Well, unfortunately for the Statesboro Blue Devils, you mentioned a few names, Screven, New Hampstead, some teams that Statesboro will be playing in the not-too-distant future. Next week they get Liberty County, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But right now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, Frank will join me again, and we'll talk a little Georgia Southern football.
Lee Hill and Johnston Insurers. We've been Statesboro's insurance people since 1963. That's a lot of memories. Recognized as one of the leading agencies in Georgia, Lee Hill and Johnston is independent and offers a complete line of personal and business insurance for auto, life, home, and health. We'll shop companies to find the lowest premiums and best coverage for you, your family, or your business. Lee Hill and Johnston Insurers, the insurance people since 1963.
All right, joining me once again, Frank Sulkowski, the big guy from WJCL, sports director extraordinaire from Savannah. And Frank, near and dear to your heart, you're part of the radio crew. As we mentioned, you finally will get a chance to hit the road and get to see the Eagles up close and personal, as will I, on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium this Saturday. The Eagles taking on the number 13 ranked Auburn Tigers. And I guess the big news recently is we've been waiting to find out for sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. And Tyson Summers announces that it will be, to nobody's real surprise, Shai Werts, a redshirt freshman and has not taken the field ever for a college snap. His first one will be on the road at Auburn. Your thoughts on the announcement? Were you surprised at all?
Well, no, not surprised at all. Shai Werts, since last season ended, seemed to be the guy. I mean, he was going to be the heir apparent. He had put in the work. He had sat there behind Fabian Upshaw and Kevin Ellison last year, waiting for his opportunity, and here it is. Again, the good news is you have a redshirt freshman, so you have several years with this guy there under center and playing at the quarterback position. Again, the bad news is it's a redshirt freshman opening the season against the Auburn Tigers, and a guy, like you said, that doesn't have a single snap, a single rep in a college football game. But again, that doesn't worry me as much. I think, from watching this guy, he's a really good leader, very vocal already, does a good job, and he's been far and above the best quarterback in preseason camp for the Eagles. There's no doubt about that. They talked about how there was a 4 or 5 man race there for the quarterback position. I don't think there was ever truly a race for quarterback. I think it was Shai Werts, his position to lose, and he just went out there and did what he did. I mean, this guy, again, let's remember, he's the type guy who was getting offers from major FBS programs, including South Carolina, maybe not to play quarterback, but to still play college football. And he really, he fits the mold. To me, Shai Werts is a little bit of J.R. Revere. I also see a little bit of Kevin Ellison in him. I also see a little bit of Greg Hill in him. There's a kind of a combination. People ask me, who does Shai Werts remind me of? It's kind of, a little bit of everybody, and that could be a good thing. Yeah,
to me, he doesn't quite, to me at this moment, have the arm strength that J.R. Revere had. I don't know if he has quite the elusiveness of Greg Hill, but I will definitely say he does remind me of Kevin Ellison, and we can go back a long ways, and it just, he's not Chaz Williams. He's not, he's a little bit like, I'll go all the way back, and ironically enough, the last freshman who, really came out the gates and started was Charles Bostic, who did start against Auburn, played significant snaps against Auburn. The last time Georgia Southern played Auburn back in '91, they opened up a 17-0 lead and then ended up losing that game when Auburn really turned it on in the second half. But, Bostic was another guy who ran the ball really well, wasn't huge, didn't have a cannon for an arm, but I think he reminds me a little bit of him and Kevin Ellison most recently. I think with having the leadership quality I hope he has of Kevin Ellison, I hope one of the big things that I'm a little concerned about in this game is going to be the turnovers. You can't turn the ball over in a game like this and expect to have any chance of winning. If they can do that, at least I think they might be able to keep it a little bit close. And I think the positive for Georgia Southern right now is their offensive line, and they seem like they're all on the same page. They are solid, and they're being coached up by Bob Bodine, who we know knows all about the triple option. Yeah. Do you think that the offensive line, being a strength of Georgia Southern, will be one of the comforts that Shai Werts will have if there is comfort in playing a number 13 ranked team in the nation?
Oh, no, there's no doubt in that. I mean, you look at this offensive line compared to, say, last year's offensive line, and it's night and day, and that's something, if you look at last year, one of the big areas of concern, and as it played out the season, proved to be a thorn in the Eagles' side was the play of the offensive line. You had to play some young guys last year. Those guys now have a year under their belt. Again, I like having some guys with experience there in front for Shai. Even bigger than that, I think, the guys you're pitching the ball to and handing the ball off to with the experience they have is going to be big for Shai's confidence as well. I mean, it doesn't hurt having a guy like L.A. Ramsby and Wesley Fields and Miles Campbell and those type guys around you to put your mind at ease a little bit. Guys who have been in the big games, who have been into some of the biggest stadiums in the Southeast and have stood toe-to-toe with some big time programs. So I think that helps as well. And I think what's also going to help Shai Werts a little bit too is I think Georgia Southern's defense is going to be much improved this year too. And a lot of people have those question marks because we did lose a good bit on defense. But I tell you what, from what I've seen so far in preseason camp, we may have the best defensive backfield in the Sun Belt Conference. Our linebacking core, I think, is going to surprise folks. And I think those guys up front and in the trenches, they're a little bit longer, they're a little bit leaner, they're a lot faster. And I think the play of the defense is also going to help the offense maybe see a little bit more success here as we head into 2017.
All right, well, the game's coming up later on this week, Saturday night at Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn, Alabama. We'll be previewing the game for you on our midweek show. But for now, Frank, thanks for joining us. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Coach Summers and offensive coordinator Brian Cook, as well as Shai Werts on Werts being named the new quarterback at Georgia Southern. All right, so we heard who the quarterback will be. Georgia Southern going up against Auburn, redshirt freshman Shai Werts behind center. We had a chance to talk with him. We also have offensive coordinator Brian Cook and Tyson Summers on Shai Werts being named the new quarterback, the starting quarterback against Auburn.
Spent a lot of time as an overall staff working this past weekend on personnel and where we're at, and then inside of personnel, also being able to work inside of what we're going to kind of be from a scheme standpoint, and we really already know what the base of those things are, but trying to make sure we have our complements the way we want to. We will come out next Monday and kind of address an overall 2-deep with everybody. With all of the positions, but I do want to make an announcement today just as far as that Shai Werts will be our #1 quarterback and our starter going into the Auburn game, and really excited about the way all 4 of those guys have played, with LeBaron Anthony and Cato Brown and Jalen Frazier. And the kind of camp that they've had. I think all 4 of them have done a tremendous job, and I really think that with both Cato and with LeBaron, it's a very fluid situation with who's kind of coming in and out of with the twos and being able to see how those guys finish up. I really think Jalen's going to have a tremendous career here, and we'll kind of see how he continues to progress throughout the next couple weeks.
I actually just found out probably about 5 minutes ago. I was eating, I checked my phone, I had like 15 Twitter notifications, so it felt good, you know what I'm saying, all the hard work I've been putting in, it's finally paid off. I called my mom and she just went crazy, so I'm glad that she's proud of me, and can't wait to tell the rest of my family. But I feel like these next couple of weeks, next few weeks, Coach Cook, he's going to get me ready, and I believe in him, and I know he believes in me, and clearly Coach Summers believes in me too, so I'm just ready to play, you know what I'm saying. It'll be my first game in college, and I'm ready.
Shai is a kid that he wants to be a good football player. He wants to win. He is the first guy, you get done with practice and it's a race to see who can get to the film first to see what happened on a particular play. And that's what you want from a quarterback. You want a guy that's a student of the game, He leaves notes around from when he's watching film, and so that's good to see. He's diligent. He tries to take advantage of every rep. I think he'll get better every day that we play with every rep that he gets. And he's young now. He's got a bright future ahead of himself, but I'm anxious to see what he can do.
All right, stay with us. Coming up next, we'll take a look at our high school highlights.
The Medical Center Pharmacy on Grenade Street is proud to be your Health Mart pharmacy in Statesboro. The Medical Center Pharmacy, locally owned and serving this community for 50 years, is open 364 days a year. The pharmacists at Medical Center know there's nothing more important than your family's well-being. That's why they take the time to know their customers, explain their medications, and answer any questions. The Medical Center Pharmacy, your Health Mart pharmacy. Health Mart, caring for you and about you.
All right, it's now time to take a look at our high school highlights from this past week. We have Statesboro High at home taking on Burke County, Southeast Bulloch hosting Richmond Hill. After about a 45-minute weather delay, the Jeff Kaiser era kicking off at Statesboro High, the Blue Devils hosting Burke County, and the Bears looking to run away with this one early on. Quarterback Damari Kelly goes 50 yards for the touchdown, and it's 7-0 Burke County. Later, still in the first, and from inside the 5, Jalen Odom in for the touchdown, and it's quickly 14-0. On the ensuing kickoff, Statesboro showing some signs of life as Tupac Lanier takes off down the far sidelines, going deep into Burke County territory. On the very next play, Stacy Fleming fighting his way down the sidelines, but he gets hit hard at the 1. The ball is loose, scooped up in the end zone by the Bears for the touchback. Burke County eventually turns that into points as Kelly goes in from inside the 5. And it's 21-0, but instead of folding up shop, the Blue Devils fight back. Drayton Marsh on the carry ahead 11 yards for a first down. Next, Fleming with some nice running. He gets 22 yards into Burke County territory here. Davis Wiggins then shows some moves, scrambling and then heading downfield for a 20-yard pickup on this one. Capping things off from the 2, it's Fleming in for the score, and it's 21-7. But just when Statesboro had some momentum, back come the Bears. Kelly to Dallas Rogers for the touchdown, and it's 28-7. Once again, though, Statesboro responds. Wiggins fires across the middle to Tupac Lanier, who fights into the end zone, and it's 28-14 at the half. We move ahead to the second half. Statesboro trying to keep things going. Wiggins fires to Lanier for another touchdown. The extra point failed, but it was still a one-score game at 28-20, but that changed quickly. William Knight up top to Marcelo Snelling for the touchdown to make it 35-20, and then Knight on the rushing score, and Statesboro falls by a final of 42-27. In Brooklet, Southeast Bulloch hosting Class 6A Richmond Hill to make Wildcats 7-0, but the Yellow Jackets West Virginia commitment they go James to who else? He hauls in the pass from Casey Green. We've seen this one a few times. 80 yards for the score. Walker fighting through some tackles and rumbling his way 50 yards for the score. This would tie things up at 7-all. The Wildcats right back to James, and this time the nice spin move off the slant, and he's in. 14-7 Richmond Hill. The Yellow Jackets not helping themselves. Later, the fumble at midfield recovered by the Wildcats. They turn that into 3 more points off the foot of Maryland commitment Joseph Petrino to make it 17-7. The Yellow Jackets march downfield, though, before half. Blaze Minnick to a diving Tyler Thornton for the score, and we go to the half with the Jackets trailing only 17-14. Second half, and Richmond Hill starts to pull away. Maurice Smith out of the Wildcat set, appropriately enough, in for the touchdown to make it 24-14. Later, it's Smith again, and Southeast falls 38-21. And of course, a reminder that Bulloch Academy lost on the road, and Portal lost on the road to Truitland. Beside putting up a good fight, though, on the road. We'll have previews for next week's games for you on our midweek show. But stay with us. Coming up next, we'll go out to the softball diamond and see how Statesboro High fared in their battle in the borough. Hey,
Hey, Miss Thompson, everything's fine. It's going to be no problem. I'll have you done in a few minutes.
My name is Paisley Nordhoff, part owner of Complete Car Care, and I want you to come see me.
Well, the Statesboro Blue Devils coming into their battle in the borough had lost 3 games in a row, shut out 3 games in a row, albeit to some pretty good teams, one being a region game to South Effingham. They were able to turn around and knock off New Hampstead in a region matchup, now sit 1-1 on the season this weekend. Friday they were supposed to play a couple of games, got rained out. Statesboro's football game, of course, was weather delayed before they were able to get things underway. But Saturday, clear skies, Statesboro taking on Dublin. They lost that game, but were able to rebound against a very tough Camden County team. Let's go out and see some of the highlights. Mill Creek Regional Park, the site for the Battle of the Boroughs. Statesboro getting things underway on Saturday. They're hosting Camden County, and Bailey Roberts gets things going. She drives one into right. It gets past the outfield. She's in safe at second. Next up, Jenna Coble with the perfect bunt. That'll set up runners on first and third for Cassidy Rushing. She drives this pitch up the middle. Roberts comes in to score, and the Blue Devils take a 1-0 lead. A little bit later, Avery Wiggins will drive this one into right. 2 runners will score. Statesboro up 3-0. They tack on another, make it 4-0. Plenty of support for Brinson Ann Rogers, who is mowing down Camden batters, and Statesboro knocks off Camden 4-0. And that'll wrap it up for this week's show. I'd like to thank you for joining us, and don't forget our midweek show coming up later on this week, which will feature Frank Sulkowski once again. We'll also hear from our area high school football coaches. We'll hear from Tyson Summers and some of the players as they get ready for Auburn, and Jennifer Lee Hirsch will join us to give us her college football picks. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again later this week.